Hello, everybody. Is it starting? Okay, hi, witchy friends. My name is Bridget Owens. If you're not, if this is maybe the first time you've tuned in for one of my live videos, um, or have not been on my pages before, I am a writer, artist, tarot reader, spiritual thinker, alchemist, and am getting ready to launch my first sort of written book. I have published coloring books before, tarot decks, a tarot workbook, but this is my first actual written book that I'm publishing, and it's getting released this Thursday. So leading up to that, I've been going live on this page, on my personal profile, on my Instagram, kind of bouncing around, and talking a little bit about how this project came to be, because it's a really sort of long and complex story, and I think might be interesting to people and kind of give you an idea about who this book is for and what is going to be in it. So, before I get into that, though, the basics of the book, it's called Deep Self Magic, a step-by-step roadmap to spiritual authenticity. And it is launching this Thursday in ebook form. It might take a little longer for the print, for the paperback to be available, just because, supply lines and shipping and all of that are really messed up right now. So, best intentions didn't come through there. I think best to assume that the paperback will be a slight bit delayed. So this will be sort of a two-stage launch. But the big party, so to speak, is going to be on Thursday. We are having a Zoom slash Facebook Live launch event, launch party, virtual launch party put on by Carnelian Moon Publishing, who are amazing and are helping me with, who have been with me on this journey to bring this book to you. So, details on all of that you can find at deepselfmagic.com. And while you're there, you can sign up to sort of subscribe to the update list, and by doing so, get registered for the 2 weeks of of giveaway drawings I'm going to be doing um, over the 14 days, starting with Thursday, the October 28th. And I've kind of, in some of my other live videos, I've talked about some of the things that will be in those giveaways, including my coloring books, including the tarot workbook. And today I was going to highlight sort of my feminist tarot deck, which is one of the projects that I'm very, very much most proud of. I drew these by hand. They are, I mean, kind of really, I'm just pulling out a random one here. But yeah, this was a bit of a passion project of mine. Very proud of it. All of the figures in the deck are women and women presenting people, um, and therefore puts women in every single role. So instead of having kings and queens, it's matriarchs and monarchs, and I think it's very, very cool. So this is one of the things that will be giving away in the 14 days after starting with the launch party. So let's get into the meat of why I'm going live today and kind of what I wanted to talk about. And in the past, you can go to deepselfmagic.com or here on the Facebook page or on my IGTV and kind of see the other live streams and the ones that I'll be doing as they pop up. I'll be doing 2 today because I didn't get on yesterday. There were other things going on in my social circle yesterday. But, and I've talked a little bit about, kind of how the idea came to be and how this sort of spawns from a much larger writing project and how that kind of started with, my spiritual history and me kind of wondering like where I fit, kind of looking for a spiritual practice and a spiritual path that was authentic to me, and where I felt, before I sort of understood authenticity, that felt like it was leading me to the right truth and what is truth and all of that stuff. I've been talking about those things, but what really um, spawned this particular, like the step by step roadmap in this book, is that at some point, I think I mentioned in the last live stream, at some point I started going, honestly, I don't believe in technically I'm an atheist. I tell that to people sometimes just because technically it's true. I believe that there's lots of things out there that we don't understand, that our understanding of the universe is minute compared to all that's out there. And so just by likelihood, like there are other things and other beings and other energies and all of that is out there and we don't have a full understanding of it. And that doesn't mean that any of it is outside of nature or particularly supernatural. It's just that we don't understand what's natural in completely. So that means that there's not I don't think that any just because something is more powerful in some ways than us as individual humans doesn't mean that they have some sort of authority. And so like that whole thing falls apart for me in my own worldview and belief system. So given that, there was definitely a point in my life where I went, what's the point then? Why am I chasing a spiritual practice? Why do I still feel drawn to spirituality if I don't believe in a God? And along the way, I was, doing all of this sort of researching and kind of tossing around ideas in my head, and I was, engaging in interesting discussions with various groups of people about the nature of reality and all sorts of things. And over time, I realized, and this was probably around the 2014, 2015 time period, maybe, it was a very slow progression, but I came to realize at some point that I had accidentally, not intentionally doing it, just sort of stopped participating in spiritual activities, kind of stopped being active in my spiritual life. I talked about it and I thought about it, but I didn't do it. So, it was a point at which I was, I was helping organize this, local meetup group. And I showed up with topics and I was there to sort of throw in my 2 cents every now and then to the discussion. But even the things that I talked about where I had some past, engagement with the topic, like I had experience to fall back on and to share, it wasn't current experience because I had stopped doing those things. I'd stopped meditating. I'd stopped journaling. I'd stopped doing any alchemy stuff. I'd stopped, I wasn't even really writing. I was reading things, kind of going, oh, that's interesting. I'll come back to that later. And that was it. And I kind of looked around my life and went, there are some things that I have found sort of that fulfillment of spiritual practice in that aren't overtly spiritual. Like there were aspects of community and sort of having a common purpose and working towards the betterment of people around me. That kind of element of spirituality I did find in other places. And as time went on, as I kind of started going I kind of let this sort of fall apart. So what do I build back? When I went to look around my life, I went, okay, well, when I started getting into activist stuff and when I started those things filled some of the same purpose in my life that spiritual practices and spiritual communities had in the past. And so that was the first big kind of epiphany for me, that spirituality doesn't have to look like religion, and it doesn't have to look like traditional spirituality, and it doesn't have to look like anything at all. But there are things about spirituality that we can find, I think that we are driven to find as humans, no matter what that looks like. So there is that sort of common belief system, common gathering and practicing together, common sharing, aligning yourself with people who have the same values, all of that kind of, we do it. And sometimes it looks like church and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it looks like something completely different, and they're both very valid. And we do that stuff not because religion is important and we have to do the religion thing, but because that's part of human spirituality. We need that. That's one of the needs that spirituality fills. But then I realized that there were things that then I missed, that there were parts of my life that weren't moving forward, that were, supported by spiritual activities and a spiritual practice, at some level. And that was things like, I wasn't really growing as a person. I wasn't doing any internal work. I was doing a lot of external activity, but I wasn't working on myself. And I think that's the biggest one. I wasn't engaging with other people and with other ideas and with other energies and stuff for the purpose of advancing my own understanding of self, my own understanding of my place in the world. Like, all of that sort of stagnated. And that also meant that my connections with people were not quite as deep. They were also a little more, there was more distance, I think, energetically between me and other people. I felt more, not isolated, but disconnected. And it's that thing of, you can be around and interact with a lot of people and still not be getting that, getting the benefit from it, and still not be really, that may not be a full two-way, relationship that you're building. And that's kind of where I ended up after all of this, and realizing, like, I had just sort of walked away from my going, like, oh, why do I need spirituality? And then realized, like, oh, this is why I need that. And I need to engage with those ideas and those thoughts, and I need to kind of spend that time in dealing with emotions and ideas and my beliefs and digging into my shadow self and doing all of that stuff, because it's important, not to me as a person, but to humans as as part of humanity. That's part of what makes us human. And somewhere along the line, and I think I'll probably do a video about this at some point, but I came to understand somewhere in there, understand spirituality through alchemical terms. And it makes most sense to me that way. And I can get very long-winded with that, so I'm going to skip it today. But the bottom line is that understanding spirituality that way, spirituality is active. It's not just a tradition. It's not just a set of beliefs. It's not, it's an active thing. And it's part of what defines human nature. It's, we all have, everything in the universe has a spirit element, and it's the interaction of those spirit elements that is spirituality. And that's part of what defines not just human nature, but life. That if we're not engaging spiritually, we're existing, but we're not really living, we're not growing. And the biggest thing, and I think what I would challenge you to kind of think about in your own life is, sometimes we don't know what we need until we go without it. Sometimes it is that purposefully or because we are pushed into a situation, going without something or not being able to participate in something or having to give something up, that makes us realize how valuable it is or is not. Sometimes when we do that, we realize, oh, that wasn't so important to my life after all. I can live without that. And sometimes we are surprised by what is, how much we do value and how much we do need some things. And what is important to this book was the idea that we don't have to wait for life to push us in that direction, right? We can choose to go without something for a while. We can choose to step back from something just to see, just as an exercise in, figuring out what we need most from things like spirituality, and therefore putting ourselves in a position where we're more, can more easily figure out how to get what we need out of those things. So I won't go really long-winded here, but thank you very, very much for watching. I'm going to hop on my Instagram here in a moment and go live again on a different topic. And check out all the other live videos, like I said, on deepselfmagic.com or on any of my social media or my YouTube channel. And big thing to remember is that this Thursday, October 28th, is the launch of Deep Self Magic, a step-by-step roadmap to spiritual authenticity. There's going to be the launch event it'll be at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, online. And go to deepselfmagic.com for details. There's going to be 14 days of giveaways after that. There's a media kit on the website if you want to share with friends who would be interested in the book. And thanks again for watching.